This is the Vapor D5. It's GEPRC's budget-priced 5-inch drone, and it's arguably the most popular 5-inch drone out right now because it really nails that sweet spot between performance and cost. And it's great for getting cinematic FPV shots, flying freestyle, or even flying some long range, or at least medium range. And I did get over 17 minutes and flew over 10 miles on a lithium-ion pack like this one, which is insane for a 5-inch drone. More on that in just a minute. But what are you giving up with the Vapor over a more premium drone like the Mark V? And is this really the best 5-inch drone you can get right now for the money? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. You can get a Vapor with or without DJI O4 Pro, with or without GPS, and with a Truex frame or a Deadcat frame, and you can choose between 5-inch and 6-inch props. If you're after the best possible FPV experience without breaking the bank, just get a Vapor with DJI O4 Pro, GPS, and your flavor of receiver, because it's probably going to be cheaper than buying those components separately. Adding a GPS is only $13 more, and adding a DJI O4 Pro is $230, which is a great deal right now because depending on where you live, you probably can't get a DJI O4 Pro for anywhere near that price. If you already have a VTX you want to use, you can get the WTFPV or the version without DJI O4 Pro and install your own system. Whether it's DJI O4 Pro, Walksnail, Analog, or even the Flywoo wide DJI O4 Lite, because you do get these different camera inserts in the box to accommodate different FPV cameras. I have the Deadcat version, which means that the arms are swept back so you don't see your props in view of your FPV camera. You should consider the Truex frame if your priority is freestyle flying and you want the best possible performance and maneuverability, or if you plan to use an external action camera that won't see the props anyway because it sits up higher. Full disclosure, GEPRC did send me the WTFPV version of this drone for review, and I did add my own DJI O4 Pro. I have already reviewed the Vapor D6 on the channel, and I did purchase this drone with my own cash, and I would never recommend anything to you guys that I wouldn't buy myself. And I have bought a few drones in my time. If you're deciding between the Vapor D5 and the Vapor D6, go watch my video on the D6. But here's the gist. You should consider the 6-inch if your priority is long, cinematic cruising flights, because these larger props are more efficient, so you can fly longer. They have a higher cruising speed, so you can fly farther. And they have more lifting capacity, so they'll do better with heavier lithium-ion batteries or larger cameras. On the other hand, a drone with 5-inch props is more maneuverable, so it's better for flying in tighter spaces, and it's definitely the better choice for freestyle flying. 5 inches is the standard for racing and freestyle drones because it's the perfect trade-off between performance and flight time. If you want a drone that can do it all, nothing beats a 5-inch. The camera mount uses these 2 aluminum plates with silicone inserts to prevent vibrations. We do get 2 sets of extra camera inserts in the box in case you want to use another VTX system. If you look at the mount from the side, you can see that there's a lot of protection for that DJI O4 Pro camera. There is plenty of space to install ND filters, and this mount does give us loads of camera tilt if that's your thing. We also have a 2.5mm carbon fiber piece up front that kind of looks like a chin, and if you crash head on, it'll hit that guard instead of hitting your expensive DJI O4 Pro camera. The air unit is mounted on a carbon fiber riser, and this helps with cooling and allows the GPS wires and the receiver to go underneath the air unit so they're safe and protected and they won't interfere with your battery strap up here. The arms are 5mm thick, and they are pretty wide right here where they meet the body to survive crashes. The top plate is 2 millimeters thick, the middle plate is also 2 millimeters thick, and the bottom plate is 2.5 millimeters thick. This frame is exactly the same as the D6, except for the arms, which means most of the frame parts are interchangeable. Our motors are GEPRC's SpeedX2 2207E 1960 kV motors. These motors are smooth and powerful, and with 1960 kV, they do have plenty of power, yet they can be efficient if you have some throttle discipline when you want to get those longer flight times, or if you want to fly lithium-ion packs like I do. These are the Eco version of GEPRC's SpeedX2 motors, and they do have a steel shaft instead of a titanium shaft, and they are a little bit heavier than GEPRC's more premium motors. This is one of those places where GEPRC has saved a little bit of money, but they do perform great, and I think most pilots would never notice a difference once you're in the air. The DJI O4 Pro antennas are mounted into this 3D print. It feels very secure, they're not going anywhere, and there is some flex to absorb impacts in case you crash. If you plan to use a different VTX system, this mount has you covered because it has a hole for a single antenna system right here and another hole for an SMA extension right here. Our GPS is GEPRC's M10 GPS unit, and it's mounted in this two-piece 3D print that can be tilted to get the best connection possible according to how fast you plan to fly. You should know that the version of this drone that comes without the DJI O4 Pro doesn't come with a GPS, but it does come with the 3D print so you can install one yourself. If you get your Vapor with O4 Pro pre-installed, I highly recommend adding a GPS. It's only like $13 more, and the benefits of being able to see your speed, altitude, direction, and having GPS rescue to fall back on are just huge. The ELRS receiver has been heat shrinked, and it's held in place with its own 3D print. And the antenna is held securely down here in the same print that holds your GPS. With this cutout in the carbon, we can see the status light on the receiver, which can be handy. For example, maybe your receiver won't connect to your radio because you forgot to turn on your radio first and the receiver's gone into Wi-Fi mode. You wouldn't know that without seeing this status light. It's a solid mounting solution for the ELRS receiver, and I have no complaints. But if you go for the Crossfire version, like I did on my Vapor D6, you should know that GEPRC is using their own mini antenna, not a full-size Immortal T. I don't like that decision because the reason you go for Crossfire is to get better range and penetration, and a mini antenna really defeats the purpose. I assume that GEPRC did this because a full-size Immortal T would be touching the carbon arms. The correct way to mount an Immortal T would be up front, where it won't be touching the carbon. You'll still get great range and penetration, and it's an easy thing to upgrade to a real Immortal T, but if you fly Crossfire, you should be aware of this design choice. These side plates are made from molded plastic, and I really like them because they make the quad look so much more finished, and they give you something nice to grab onto without putting pressure on your electronics. You do get an extra set of black side plates if you prefer that stealthy all black look. Let me know which color you guys like better. Alright you guys, I took the top plate off to give you a better look. These side plates snap onto the frame standoffs, and they're secured to the frame with a screw up front, and then they're secured together with a standoff in the back. They're held on super securely, but they're still easy to take off with just a few screws. And you don't have to remove the top plate in order to take off these side plates. I just did that to give you guys a better view. The stack is GEPRC's Taker F722 HD version 2 stack. This is a value stack that GEPRC uses to keep the price down, but you do have that F7 processor and a 60 amp ESC, so it's a very capable stack. And it's got plugs for everything, so if you ever need to swap out components or even change the flight controller, that would be easy to do. The solder work is very well done, and the build quality is really top notch. All the cables are routed cleanly, and there's a clever little 3D print up front that holds a massive capacitor, a buzzer, and the DJI O4 camera cable. Since they put the capacitor up front, they also had to put the battery lead up front, and it's super long. I don't have a real strong opinion as to battery leads up front or in the back. When I build quads, I always put my battery lead in the back because I think it's cleaner, but this works fine, and since it's so long, you have loads of flexibility to run different size batteries. I just have to tuck the battery lead under the battery strap or secure it with rubber bands. Without a battery, the Vapor D5 weighs in at 479 grams. And if I add an ND filter and 2 battery straps, because that's how I'm going to fly mine, it weighs in at about 491 grams. With this CNHL Speedy Pizza Pro 1350 mAh 6S pack, it weighs 709 grams. And with this pack, I flew between 5 to 7.5 minutes, doing a mixture of freestyle flying and cruising. Now, obviously your flight times will really depend on how you fly, but this drone can be efficient if you have some throttle discipline. With a CNHL Black 1500 mAh 6S pack, the drone weighs 759 grams. And with this pack, I got between 4 to 6 minutes, so I think the Speedy Pizza Pro are actually better quality packs. With this Lumineer 3000 mAh 18650 pack, it weighs 806 grams. And with this pack, I was able to fly for 10 or 11 minutes. And with this massive Lumineer 5000 mAh lithium-ion pack, it weighs 938 grams. And with this pack, I was able to fly for 17.5 minutes. GEPRC recommends 1300 to 1800 mAh lipos for the best balance between performance and flight time, but notice that the design of this drone leaves loads of space to mount oversized batteries if you want to. Just keep in mind that if you're after agility and performance, especially if you want to fly freestyle, you'll want a battery with the highest possible power to weight ratio like these Speedy Pizza Pros. Alright you guys, I went out to a scenic spot with a beautiful waterfall to test my Vapor D5, but before I send my quad out into the mountains, I always test GPS rescue just to make sure I've got that safety net in case anything goes wrong. I did have plenty of satellites, and when I activated GPS rescue, it came right home as you would expect. The tune on the Vapor D5 is just dialed in, and the drone flies great. It's completely smooth and controllable, but it's also agile and responsive when you want to rip. It feels like the perfect dual-purpose quad that does great with cinematic or freestyle flying. If you go with larger batteries, you can get some very long flight times without sacrificing power. And with those heavier batteries, it's very stable, even in high winds. And with my Lumineer 3000 mAh 18650 pack, I flew for 11 minutes and covered 9.8 kilometers, or about 6 miles. With this massive 5000 mAh 2700 pack, I flew for 17.5 minutes and covered 16.7 kilometers, which is a little over 10 miles, just doing cinematic cruising and mountain surfing to get the scenery shots that you'll see throughout this video. Keep in mind that I'm flying at high altitude in the Andes Mountains, and I am doing a lot of climbing to reach these mountain peaks, which does eat up a little bit more battery, so these are real-world flight times, not just an endurance test. These 21700 lithium-ion packs are pretty heavy for 5-inch props, but the 1930 kV motors on this drone handle that weight just fine. And the nice thing about these Lumineer nav packs is that they really deliver the amps. They're way better than the older lithium-ion packs I used to use. You still want to have throttle discipline if you're trying to get long flight times, but if you do need to pull up quickly to come out of a dive, or if you have to activate GPS rescue, these packs can deliver the amps when you need them. For cruising or cinematic style flying, I really like using lithium-ion packs because I can just stay in the air so much longer, and that's peace of mind when you're cruising over a jungle or a distant mountain peak where you probably wouldn't find your drone if your battery died. But I have to say that when I went back to lighter weight packs like the Speedy Pizza 1350s, the drone is way more punchy because the power to weight ratio is so much higher. With a high quality, lightweight lipo, the Vapor can rip. It's super agile and maneuverable. Coming from a lithium-ion pack, it feels like you just went from a Humvee to a sports car. And for me, that's what makes the Vapor D5 arguably the best 5-inch drone you can buy right now. I can fly off to a distant mountain peak and get cinematic FPV shots on lithium-ion packs, or I can rip some freestyle with lipos. It can literally do it all. Alright you guys, let's talk about the difference between the more affordable Vapor series and the more premium Mark V. The first difference obviously is price. Keep in mind that the exact prices will depend on the options you choose and the sales that are going on at any given time, but for a drone with GPS built in, the Mark V runs about 100–120 more than a Vapor drone with the same specs. Now, if you compare the versions of these drones that come without DJI O4 Pro, the difference is only $40. So if you go with the Mark V, you might want to install your own DJI O4 Pro. But if you go with the Vapor, you're better off getting it with DJI O4 Pro pre-installed. If you want to check the exact price difference, I do have links down in the video description. So what are you getting for that extra money with the Mark V? The Mark V has GEPRC's F722 version 3 flight controller that has Bluetooth so you can tune your quad in the field. The Vapor has an F722 version 2 flight controller which doesn't have Bluetooth, but it still has that F7 processor, and it does have a 60 amp ESC where the Mark V has a 50 amp ESC. When it comes to motors, the Mark V has the more premium SpeedX2 motors, which have a titanium shaft and weigh about 29.5 grams. The Vapor D5 uses the SpeedX2 E-Series motors, which are more budget-minded, and they have a steel shaft and they're a little bit heavier at about 34.5 grams. The wheelbase is also a little bit different. On the Mark V, it's 230 millimeters, and on the Vapor D5, it's 238.4 millimeters. So the Vapor is actually a slightly larger quad. The Mark V also has a captured XT60 connector, and the Vapor D5 has a long battery lead coming out the front. The Vapor drones do have side plates to protect your electronics, which the Mark V doesn't have. Both drones have super durable frames with 5mm thick arms. The Mark V does have an interchangeable camera mounting system, and it comes with a standard GoPro mount, a naked GoPro mount, a simple carbon plate, and also some foam couch style mounts. When it comes to weight, my Mark V weighs in at 475 grams, and my Vapor D5 weighs in at 490 grams. Keep in mind that these drones are set up the same with DJI O4 Pro, GoPro mounts, and 2 GEPRC 250mm battery straps. But my Mark V is a custom build, and it has some extras that my Vapor doesn't have, like nylon cable wrap over the motor wires, it has a self-powered buzzer, and it's running Crossfire with a real Immortal T. And I am running these T-Motor F60 Pro motors, which are my favorite motors for a 5-inch build, but they are a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier, and even with all those extras, my Mark V is still lighter than the Vapor D5. If we were comparing a Mark V bind and fly in an apples to apples comparison, the weight difference would be more like 40 grams. If you're after maximum performance and money is not a problem, you should consider the Mark V because it does have a weight advantage and more premium components. But if you want a more affordable and a more durable quad, I think you should consider the Vapor D5. The Vapor is a more budget quad with these eco motors, but it's built to last, and I bet most pilots wouldn't be able to tell the difference between budget and premium motors once they're in the air. If it were me, I would get the Vapor over the Mark V because when I'm spending my own cash, I'm after maximum value for money. And I did put my money where my mouth is because I did purchase a maxed out Vapor bind and fly, but for the Mark V, I did a custom build. Alright you guys, here are my conclusions on the Vapor D5. If you want to rip, this drone will not let you down. And if you want to just cruise or get cinematic FPV shots and even do some long range or at least medium range flying with lithium-ion batteries, you can do that with a little throttle discipline. This beefy frame has wider arms that are going to give you better durability than some of the other drones in this category, and it isn't a bad choice for a freestyle basher or for new pilots who are more likely to crash. But most importantly, there wasn't any jello at all in my DJI O4 Pro footage, and the tune is absolutely solid. I'm really happy with the cinematic FPV shots I was able to get with this quad. I also really like these side panels. They just make the drone look and feel more finished, and I love having something to grab onto without putting pressure on my electronics. I also really appreciate having an M10 GPS unit built in. For me, GPS is an absolute necessity. I could install my own, but why would I if they're gonna install it for me for an extra 13 bucks? And when it comes to money, the price of this drone is basically unbeatable. GEPRC did save a little bit of money using Eco components, but these 2207 1960 kV motors are very capable, and that Taker stack has an F7 processor and a 60 amp ESC, so you're not really giving up anything. The only thing I really miss over a more premium drone is Bluetooth connectivity in order to tune the drone in the field. But I don't want to splash out a whole bunch of extra cash just for that convenience, and you could just use a SpeedyBee adapter if you want to connect your flight controller in the field. The only real complaint I have about this drone is specific to the Crossfire version. I don't like that GEPRC uses a mini 915 MHz antenna instead of a real Immortal T. But that's not an issue if you go ELRS or if you use the plug and play version for the DJI remote. And if you do fly Crossfire, the range is still gonna be very good, and you could just swap out antennas if you really want the best possible long-range connection. I'll leave some links down in the video notes, and if you want to learn more about this drone, be sure to check them out because I do update those links with coupons and promos as they become available. All right, you guys, that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.